What's up, YouTube? This week, I wanted to do something different. I have been watching The Boys Season 2, and it made me think about this discussion that's been kind of going on in the midst of the streaming wars, which is, what is the best way to watch a show now? Is it better to watch it weekly or to watch it in a binge format, like just watching everything all at once? Because if you don't know, if you haven't watched The Boys before, last season they gave it to us all at once, so you could just binge the whole thing. But this season, they did something different where they released the first 3 episodes together, and then from there started doing a weekly release schedule. I've actually been enjoying it so far, and there's some other shows that have done this too recently, like The Mandalorian Season 1, and I'm assuming Season 2 will be the same way. Mostly Disney Plus stuff, I think, is going for a weekly release schedule, which works. And so it kind of made me think about what are the advantages and disadvantages of each format as I've been watching stuff during quarantine, during this pandemic. So let's talk about it. So let's start off with the weekly format. This is what I think a lot of people are used to. It's what I'm used to growing up with a TV in the house with cable, right? When there's a show you want to watch, you usually watch it weekly because that's how episodes premiere, mostly for sitcoms and superhero shows like kids shows. When I was young, I was watching like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon. A lot of those shows released weekly episodes. Now, in some cases, I could imagine being able to binge some of those shows. That would have been great because some of those shows maybe didn't lend themselves to weekly schedule as much, but for the most part, I was used to it and I was okay with that. The biggest problem I would say though was probably the ads, and that's one thing that we kind of bypass in the streaming wars, is that you don't have to deal with ads as much as you used to back in the day, but depending on which service you're using and what kind of plan you pay for, you might still have to deal with ads. So that's one, I would say, I guess, advantage and disadvantage. So like, I think when you're talking about weekly release schedule, you talk about like episodic, serialized kind of storytelling, right? And in that case, I think that's easier too when you're watching something weekly, because then you're watching a story. Either you're watching a story that's building upon itself every week and it's entertaining, right? And that gives you time between each week to talk to your friends and your family about stuff, like what people used to do with Game of Thrones, for example, when that was on. I didn't watch that though. But there's also other shows where it's not necessarily one continuous story. It's actually like different adventures each week. And I think that also works. That's something that The Mandalorian was kind of doing, where most of it seemed like adventure of the week kind of stuff. And then in the last couple episodes, everything tied together. So in that case, I think weekly is at an advantage there because a lot of people would enjoy that whole week to week process of seeing how the story is slowly developing. Now, on the binging side, this could also work where there's a story that's continuous, and some streaming shows actually kind of play like a movie when you think about it. Like the story they're telling flows together so well that it works for binging, that you could sit there and knock out all 8 episodes in a day if you wanted to. Now, a disadvantage for that, I think, that I found, at least for myself, I don't know if other people have related to this, is when I'm watching a show, when I'm binging it, sometimes I'll binge through the season so fast, and then it's like I don't talk about it again after that. I don't really think about it. And then when season 2 comes along, like a year or 2 later, I barely remember anything that happened in season 1. Like, I remember the major stuff, but all the little details just like fly out of my head. So I think that's one other advantage slash disadvantage of weekly versus binging, is that when you're binging a show, you don't always process everything. You don't have as much time to really sit there and look at all the details. I mean, some people might, if you have like photographic memory, or if you're like really particular when you're watching a show or a movie, you like watch everything and you look really close at every little detail. Now, if you're not that kind of person and you're binging your shows, then you're probably going to be like me and forget a lot of stuff between seasons. This could also happen in a weekly schedule too. Like if you're watching a show that's been on for a really long time, then you're probably not going to remember stuff way back in like season 1 or season 2 unless you were rewatching it regularly and binging it, right? So I think it's another thing that I feel like really sets apart these two schedules. Now, talking about The Boys in particular, there's been a lot of people complaining about this season going from binging, like dropping everything at once, to weekly. And in this case, I think it still works. I don't necessarily mind it because, again, I don't remember a lot of the smaller details of The Boys season 1. Like, there's some stuff they mentioned in season 2. I'm like, wait, when did that happen? And then I had to like go back and rewatch that moment in season 1. I do like that this season we are getting more time to like sit and really process the events that are happening, kind of put all the threads together, discuss with people, and really get the most out of the series, which sometimes you don't get. And I think there are some shows and series that do really benefit from the weekly schedule because there's some episodes you don't want to just watch in a binge because they kind of just get lost in the mix of it. Like, there's some really great episodes of network TV that I don't think deserve to be like necessarily binge, because when you watch it on a big scale with the whole world basically watching with you at the same time, and everybody waits like months or weeks for something to come out, and then when you finally get to watch it, it's a big event. It's something that everybody shares together, and you don't necessarily get that with binging. Of course, people are all binging at the same time, but some people watch shows slower than others, so you may not always get done at the same time. So there's also the risk of things getting spoiled for you unless you're like not on social media at all. Another thing I enjoy about weekly, especially during this pandemic time, is that it just gives me something to look forward to week, because again, you binge an episode or binge a season of a show and then it's gone. You have to wait a whole year for it to come back, and that could actually be a lot longer because of this whole pandemic situation and filming being delayed. So it's nice during this quarantine time to have shows to look forward to, shows to keep up with week to week, to kind of, give me some fun stuff to look forward to on TV. So it's not like a constant reminder that we're living in a pandemic and all the movies and shows that I was looking forward to are delayed for like a year. So that's also a great aspect of it. Another thing I was thinking about when it comes to weekly versus binging is that you also don't have to deal with hiatuses when you're talking about binging, because in network TV, lots of things can happen. Like, even before there was a pandemic, there was always something coming up. Either they had to put a show on pause because they needed more time to film more episodes, or some really tragic event happened in the real world that made it hard for them to continue filming or something. And you don't have to necessarily deal with that with binging. Like, sometimes the season may get delayed, but that seems pretty rare when it comes to binging. Most times you won't have to worry about random hiatuses. Like, The Flash used to have that a lot. And I mean, it still is CW in general, where they just randomly have a hiatus and they don't really explain why. Most times it is because they need to film more episodes, but sometimes it just comes out of nowhere, even though they should have a certain amount of episodes filmed, so it's kind of weird. And that, I think, is one great thing about binging too, is that you don't have to worry about random hiatuses. And again, it's very rare for a season post or pre-pandemic for a season to be flat out delayed or put off for some weird reason. Like, most shows, when they say it's going to come out, it typically comes out. So overall, I don't think I can really pick one or the other when it comes to weekly versus binging. I think I definitely see the advantages of both. Weekly, for me, I like when it's a really cool, well-developed story that's developing each week, or when it's kind of an adventure of the week style, like you would see in The Mandalorian, for example. So I like that, and I do like the whole community aspect of watching a show week to week and having time to really talk with people, and that everybody's basically on the same page. But I also like when you're binging, you get everything at once. You don't have to wait for anything. The only wait you have is you wait for the season to come out, and then you wait after the fact for the next season to come out, assuming it's not canceled. But I also notice that when I do binge shows, sometimes I'm not as much paying attention to the details and all the intricacies of the episode. So I think that's another advantage for weekly, is that you can always take more time to really look into the details. You can watch episodes more often, I think, because you have like a week with each episode basically, so you could watch it over and over again and get new details from it, new story points, stuff they may have had in there, like Easter eggs and stuff. Like, I think you can appreciate it more on a weekly basis. That's just my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed me rambling on about this subject. It just kind of popped in my head, and I didn't really want to like write a whole script or whatever. I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. So let me know your thoughts on this whole, I don't really call it a debate. I guess it's more just a discussion or a preference. But what do you enjoy more? Do you like when shows are released weekly, like week to week, or do you want everything just to be given to you all at once? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.